Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to our second online question and answer session to support the applicants interested in applying for the first call for proposals of the European Urban Initiative Innovative Actions. My name is Nelly Danco Herrera, and I work as project officer at the European Urban Initiative Permanent Secretariat, and I will be your host during the event. And today I am accompanied by my colleagues Camille Degris and Romain Tourminel as project officers and Jean-Christophe Charlier as the finance coordinator and IT support. So before starting, let me remind you to have your phones with the QR code reader or type slido.com, then enter the code that we provided you yesterday in an email reminder so you can participate in the questions that we integrated in the presentation for today. So let's get started by getting to know you. So the first Slido question would be, where are you joining us from? So you have here the QR code, please. And we would appreciate you let us know, where are you joining us from? Type just one word. We have like 30 seconds more to receive your answers. So we start seeing the cities that you are in and joining us today. Thank you very much to all of you. So we see that many people are coming from all parts of Europe. Now let's go to the second question. Thank you very much, guys. So then you get to see the diversity of cities joining us today. The second question that we have for you now is, in order to get to know our audience for this session, it is, what is your current role in the organization that you work for? So for this, we would appreciate as well you write us if you are a finance officer, finance manager. So you have another minute to let us know your current role in the organization that you work for. So we see that we have project managers, a managing director, officers, experts, advisors, researchers, project developers, consultants. And I suppose all of you joining forces to help urban authorities to put together an application form for our initiative. So thank you very much. It was really important for us to get to know who is our audience. Now let's start as well getting to know your knowledge prior to the session. So the first question would be, have you read the guidance finances part prior to this meeting? So we just have no answer there. Good to see that most of you have read the guidance section. This is going to help you, and hopefully the session can sort of complement on the knowledge you already have. And no, for the ones who answered no, we hope that this session as well will help you to sort of understand the basis and invite you or provoke on you in interest, so then you can have a look to our guidances for further and detailed information. So now let's get to the other question, which is, what is the level of your understanding about the finances and management part of European Urban Initiative Innovative Action Project? So do not forget to scan the QR code to put your answers in Slido. So we have 4 options there. So good to see that we have people with above 70% of basic knowledge of our initiative and finances and the topics that we are presenting today. And we are as well happy to have people under other categories, and even 4% of people believing that they are experts on our topics. So thank you very much. So for today, I will walk you through the agenda that we will be covering in this session. We will talk about the funding principles, the eligibility of the expenses how to build your project budget, and the principles of management. Then we will move to a more interactive part of our event, question and answer session. We expect for 1 hour, so we expect many questions from you as well. Then I will be reading out the questions, so then my colleagues here, speakers, will answer them. Then we will finalize the session with a presentation on the European Urban Initiative Self-Assessment Tool and a general overview of the next step of the first call for proposals for the innovative actions and the support that the Permanent Secretariat is providing to all applicants. This is very important to remember. Please, regarding the question and answer session we have for 1 hour, we strongly encourage you to ask and submit your questions via WebEx chat only. So, and only when the presentations are going to be over. Why? Because it may happen that during the presentation, some of your doubts and questions may be already answered by the content of the slides we will present you. So please, we will only accept your questions, and please submit them via chat, WebEx chat, only when the presentations are over. Thank you very much. So let's start with the first part, which is the funding principles. The European Urban Initiative for this second programming period follows a total cost principle, where the project receives ERDF co-financing of up to 80% of the eligible costs, and every partner forming the partnership, meaning main urban authority, associated urban authority, delivery partners, and transfer partners, receiving the ERDF, they need to secure 20% of public or private contribution to complete the whole project budget from their own resources or from other sources in the form of cash or in kind. Please, an important rule is that this contribution cannot come from another EU source. So in the table, you have one example of a project using the maximum ERDF funding of 5 million, for which the total project budget is 6.25 million. The payment scheme that it's another attractive aspect from our initiative. It is mainly based on the principles of advanced ERDF payments and ultimately of the reimbursement of costs that were actually incurred during the implementation phase. Why is attractive? Because we recognize and we are aware that implementing an innovative project with all the complexities and aspects that we bring together are not easy. So then we want projects showing an immediate result after the 3.5 years of implementation, for which we provide them an advance payment. So in the table, we explain you the types of advance payments. We have the first ERDF advance payment equivalent to 50% ERDF grant that integrates the lump sum for the preparation and the initiation phase, and this comes upon the successful completion of the initiation phase. The second ERDF payment equivalent to 30% ERDF grant comes after the submission and approval of the first financial claim and during the implementation phase of the project. The third ERDF, it's not advance payment, this is rather the reimbursement of costs equivalent to 20% of ERDF grant, will integrate the lump sum for the closure, and it will come after the project implementation and after the submission and approval of the final financial claim, for annual progress report, and a final qualitative report. For this new programming period, we keep working with 6 cost categories: staff cost, office and administration, travel and accommodation, external expertise and services, equipment, infrastructure and construction works. For each cost category, a definition and rules are provided in our guidances. Please note that these rules are applicable only to the main urban authority, to the associated urban authority, to the delivery partner that can actually claim the cost under these categories, but not applicable to the transfer partners, because their expenditure is going to be covered in the manner of lump sum. So in case of doubts, please, when allocating your costs to the right cost category, please do not hesitate to contact the Permanent Secretariat. Eligibility period. For this, I will focus as well on the slide presenting you the phases of the project implementation. So the eligibility period for project expenditure corresponds to the project implementation period. For a cost to be eligible, the activities must be incurred and carried out between the project implementation start date and the project implementation end date, and they should be paid before the submission of the second financial claim or to the first level controller or auditor for validation. It is important to note that the eligibility of expenditure is related to thematic work packages ends with the end of the thematic work package. You will see that thematic work packages in the slides are in blue color, so meaning that any expenditure related to thematic work packages incurred after the thematic work packages end date will not be deemed eligible. In the 6 months period between the end date of the thematic work package and the end date of the implementation phase, which is signed in red, any expenditure related to work packages, horizontal work packages in green color, management, monitoring, evaluation, communication, capitalization, and transfer work package will be deemed eligible for those last 6 months. The other project phases will be automatically covered with a dedicated lump sum. So let's talk about the eligibility of project expenses. The background, and given the experience of the Urban Innovative Actions Initiative with the 86 approved projects and almost 300 million of reported expenses, the initiative for this second programming period 2021-2027 has opted for a greater use of simplified cost options. Why? Because this was a measure encouraged by the European Commission, because it allows easier access to small beneficiaries to ERDF funding, and because it reduces the big administrative burden of reporting and justifying the cost for projects. It also allows lower error rate in reported expenses for our initiative, and as well for the project, allows quicker control of project expenses and a faster payment of the projects, which is on our interest as well, that projects have the cash flow to continue the implementation and to make sure that they achieve the results at the end of the implementation phase. So this is why we opted for a variety of simplified cost options. We have in total 3 types of simplified cost options for this new programming period. And let's start by the lump sums. This is the first type of simplified cost option that we will apply for this programming period. A lump sum is a single sum of money paid to the project upon the completion of certain deliverables and outputs. We have 4 lump sums, one for project preparation equivalent to 25,000 euro, corresponding to 20,000 ERDF euro, another for initiation phase equivalent to 75,000 euro, corresponding to 60,000 ERDF. Another lump sum for project closure equivalent to 20,000 euro, corresponding to 16,000 ERDF. And a last lump sum for transfer partner equivalent to 150,000 euro, corresponding to 20,000 ERDF. The second type of simplified cost options is flat rates. Flat rates are fixed percentages to specific categories of eligible cost. The initiative offers total 3 types of flat rates, one for staff cost, another for office administration, and another for travel accommodation. For staff cost, which is the first option that an applicant can choose, in case they want to have this option, there is a 20% of total eligible amount declared by the project partner under the cost categories, external expertise, equipment, and infrastructure and construction works. Note that this option is not authorized for project partners foreseeing to include their cost works or contracts or supply or services contracts that exceed in value the thresholds of the EU public procurement directives. The office and administration flat rate is equivalent to 15% of the staff cost. The travel and accommodation, it is equivalent to 5% of the staff cost. With the flat rates, the project partners do not need to provide any justification or supporting documents to claim the cost. The auditor will rather focus on checking that these staff costs have been calculated according to the right methodology and that the other cost categories, meaning external expertise, equipment, infrastructure, and construction works, which form the basis of the calculations, are actually legal and regular. The third type of simplified cost options we offer is a standard scale of unit cost, which actually is the second option for staff cost. The staff cost can also be calculated based on a standard scale of unit cost defined by the project partner. In this case, the standard unit cost is an hourly rate, and it applies to every employee regardless the type of position. So the project partners must report the staff cost based on the number of hours worked by their employees. The method of calculation is hourly rate equal annual payroll divided by the full-time equivalents divided by the 1,720 hours. The project partner can only report the cost of an employee working under an employment contract or an equivalent document that cannot declare, and they cannot declare more than 1,720 hours per full-time employee per calendar year. The maximum number of hours is reduced to a pro rata of the 1,720 hours for employees working part-time, and as well for reporting periods shorter than 12 months. It is important to as well keep in mind that large organizations may limit the perimeter of the payroll to the department or subsidiary participating in the project. The audit trail for this type of standard scale unit cost for staff cost will be composed by the employment confirmation that the employee is actually working for the project and that belongs to the partner organization, and a report of the worked hours for the project. The report template will be provided in due time by the Permanent Secretariat. As you can see in this programming period, there are two options offered for staff cost. Each project partner should decide on the best option for them in the application form. This choice will be valid for all the staff members of that project partner and cannot be modified during the entire project duration. So within the same project, it can happen that different project partners may follow different options. So now we will move to real cost options.
Thank you, Nelly. Good morning, everyone. I will now walk you through the project expenditures that should be reported and claimed on a real cost basis, meaning based on the actual amount paid out by the project partners to achieve a certain project outcome. So this real cost actually concerns three cost categories: external expertise and services, equipment, and infrastructure and construction works. So basically, we'll go through each of them in a bit, but just before this, the following principles should be reminded whenever project expenditure are incurred on a real cost basis. First of all, these expenditures are subject to public procurement rules. They also must be backed by a complete audit trail for audit purposes, contrary to the simplified cost options. And it's important to remind as well that the expenses based on invoicing between project partners are ineligible, meaning that any expenses based on contract concluded between project partners cannot be accepted. So let's start with the first cost category concerned by real cost, external expertise and services. So under this cost category, we will include all the professional services provided by external service provider, which are different from the project partners, of course, which are contracted to carry out specific project activities. So that means that this kind of services must be necessary to deliver the project and that they must be linked explicitly to activities foreseen in the application form. So it covers a wide range of different types of activities, from studies to training activities, translation, professional services such as financial management, legal consultancy, everything related to communication or publicity or promotional materials. In some cases, it can be a bit difficult, tricky to make a distinction, to choose where to allocate some cost item between staff and external expertise. How to make the distinction? Actually, any working person which is not directly employed by a project partner, meaning not appearing directly on the payroll of the partner organization, and instead having an invoice-based relationship with the project partner, should be considered under the external expertise cost category. There are other specific type of costs that should be included under this cost category, starting with unpaid voluntary work. Actually, volunteers' involvement in the project can be valorized to cover the partner's 20% contributions as in-kind contribution, but we'll come back on this a bit later. And we also have, under this cost category, potential financial schemes that will be implemented by the project partners to distribute part of the grant to third parties, individuals, organizations, as it proves to be a quite useful tool to release part of the subsidy outside of the project partners for the purpose of the project implementation. Let's have a closer look to this financial schemes mechanisms. So it consists in the distribution of a financial contribution to third parties of the project following a specific selection process under the form of vouchers, grants, or prizes. For instance, it could be grants allocated to some landlords as part of a housing energy refurbishment scheme. It could be as well prizes offered to key project stakeholders to reward their involvement in the project, or some vouchers distributed to citizens accepting, for instance, to change their mobility habits. So these are just examples, but to give you a bit of understanding of what can be included under these financial schemes. Of course, they're allowed only providing they contribute to the project's objective and results. And also knowing that an individual award per third party cannot exceed the threshold of 60,000 euros. Whenever you implement this kind of financial scheme, of course, the project must monitor them and have some control mechanism in place to make sure that at the end, the beneficiary are using the award according to the selected concepts. What is important at the application stage is to have this financial scheme well detailed in your application form, if you plan any. So well detailed in a specific work package or activity or deliverable, depending on the importance of this scheme for the overall project solution. And where you are expected to provide the main information regarding that scheme in terms of what is the purpose of the scheme, what are the different rules of the contest, the selection criteria, the total amounts, the target groups, and so on. There are actually two ways of implementing financial schemes. They are illustrated on the slide you have here. Either the scheme can be the grant can be transferred to a provider who will be then in charge of delivering goods and services to the third party, or, and that's the second visual on the slide, to transfer the grants directly to the third party. Moving on now to the second cost category concerned by real cost, equipment. So this can be any type of equipment purchased, rented, or leased by a project partner. Of course, different than the equipment already covered under the office administration cost category. We have two types of equipment, accessory equipment and investment equipment. Investment equipment are actually the equipment considered as investment or part of an investment. So what do we consider as investment in innovative actions project? Are outputs of the projects that are expected and will remain in use by the target groups after the completion of the project. It can be, for instance, solar panels on the top of a building, or a big server for data management, or 3D printers, and so on. In that case, for investment equipment, the full purchase price of the equipment is eligible because we don't have any depreciation applicable. Whereas for the other type of equipment, the accessory equipment, so those are equipment that are accessory to project implementation, meaning that they are only used to support project activity, to carry out some project activity, for instance, like some small instrument to deliver gardening activity for social purposes. In that case, depreciation is applicable. And now, the last cost category concerned by the real cost, infrastructure and construction works. So this cost category covers all the costs related to investment in infrastructure. Of course, they are allowed only if they are absolutely necessary and crucial for the achievement of the project output and result and for the delivery of the overall project solution. As for any investment in equipment, here again, the full purchase price of infrastructure is eligible. There is no depreciation applicable here. This cost category can cover the purchase of provision of land, of real estate, other type of renovation works, site preparation, building permits, building materials, and actually all the costs necessary to carry out construction works, handling, installation, and any other specific type of interventions work. The only limitation to have in mind here concerns the purchase of provision of land, which by regulation is in any case limited to 10% of the total project budget. So we've now went through the different cost categories, and in order to complete this presentation on the eligibility of expenditures, let's now have a look at other type of financials and eligibility rules that are interesting to keep in mind when designing your projects. So let's start with the first one, the principle of ownership and durability of project investments. Actually, any innovative actions project investment, be it infrastructure or investment in equipment, must comply with the specific principle of ownership and durability, which are aimed to ensure the long-term sustainability of the investment and the sound use of EUI-IA funds. So concretely, that means that during the project lifetime, only project partners can become the owners of the project investments, but also that these investments have to remain within the ownership of the partnership, within the same project partners for at least 5 years following the final payment to the main urban authority. And likewise, in terms of durability, these investments have to remain operational and keep serving their initial purpose for at least 5 years following the final payment to the main urban authority. So concretely speaking, that means that there can't be any, during that period, any major modification affecting the nature, the objective, or the implementation conditions of these investments. What does it mean for the application form? Actually, we expect that the conditions of the ownership of the investment, but also the durability, so what will happen after the project, the maintenance conditions, the financial sustainability, all of this information must be presented in the application form for each investment that you would include in your project. Moving on now to the topic of public procurement. So as you can imagine, your innovative action project have to comply with public procurement rules to make sure that the cost of your contract are eligible. That means that each project partner must be aware of the applicable procurement rules to act accordingly. And this is also very important at the application stage when you will design your work plan, because you need to anticipate as well all the procedures related to public procurement. Adherence to public procurement must be well documented for audit purposes, and this is even the case for the contracts that are pre-existing the innovative actions project, but that are used for the project activities. And it is even the case for whenever direct contracting is allowed by national regulation. We recommend you, even in that case, to document the selection procedure to demonstrate the good use of public funds. Please note that project partners that do not fulfill the definition of a contracting authority, so that's mainly the case of the private partners. Of course, they are not subject to public procurement rules, but still, as they are dealing with public money with ERDF, they are expected to demonstrate that they made a good use of this money when selecting the provider, and then we expect them to do some market researches for any contract higher than 10,000 euros. So concretely, that means that they are expected, these private partners, to make at least 3 comparative offers and to have a small audit trail in place to justify the selection process. And finally, project partner can resort to in-house contracting, which is a contractual relationship between a public authority and a provider which is fully owned or under the control of this public authority. This is actually an exception to public procurement rules. So in that specific case, you don't have to comply with, don't have to apply the public procurement rules, but it's only possible providing the very strict conditions are met. So for this, I invite you to have a look at the guidance to check whether you fulfill these three conditions, and also to involve your legal department to confirm the status of in-house. Please remind that in any case, this in-house contracting cannot exceed 50% of the related project partner budgets. Now, as you have understood from the presentation on funding principle, each project partner has to secure 20% of its total budget with own contributions. And with this slide, we would like to focus on the opportunity offered to project partners to cover the contribution with in-kind contribution, which is actually a non-cash contribution, which nevertheless have monetary value, but which is given free of charge to the project. So it can be the provision of goods, real estate, land, volunteers, equipment, services. So for instance, if in the framework of your project, you're planning the refurbishment of a building, then the value of this building could be brought to the project and could be valorized as in-kind contribution. The same goes for instance, for renting costs of a space that will be necessary to carry out some project activities, or for the involvement of volunteers in the delivery of, involved in the delivery of your project activities. Of course, to be eligible, the object of the contribution must be necessary to deliver the project and reach the objectives, and it can't be something already funded in the past with EU funds. What is necessary to keep in mind at the application stage is that the value of this contribution must be reflected in the application form in two spaces, both in the partner's contribution section and in the budget of the relevant work package. Please note that the value of the in-kind contribution must be assessed by an independent external expert, but this assessment is not requested at the application stage. It could be requested later on by the auditors. Please remind as well that the total value of the in-kind contribution cannot exceed the 20% of the total project budget, and remind as well the specific case of the provision of land we have already mentioned, which is limited to 10% of the total project budget. And to finish with state aid, as you can imagine, as you can guess, innovative action projects have to be designed in compliance with state aid rules at all levels to prevent any market distortion or to ensure the effectiveness of the public spending. As you may know, there are 5 cumulative conditions to recognize state aid. It must be public resources in the framework of an economic activity with a selective nature, providing an advantage and having an effect on the competition and trade. Please note that for innovative actions projects, the ERDF funding, so the 80% part of your total project budget is automatically not considered as a state aid. This is because the EUI initiative is an initiative of the European Commission, so the ERDF budget is not considered as resources under the control of the member states. And this is actually good news because that means that for innovative actions projects, the state aid risk is exclusively limited to the 20% of contribution secured by the project partners, as long as this contribution is covered by public resources, and of course, providing that this project partner is carrying out economic activities in the framework of the project. So this combination of conditions does not happen that often for innovative actions project. However, should it be the case and should this condition be met and the 5 constitutive conditions of state aid be fulfilled, then it's the responsibility of the project partners to explore potential other solutions to ensure the compatibility of the resources with the internal markets. And here again, we strongly advise you, in case of a risk of state aid is identified, to consult your legal department for further support. That's it on my side, and I give back the floor to Nelida.
Thank you. Thank you, Camille. So let's talk now about the budget planning. So for this, we will enter again to Slido. you have the following question. Which aspects are necessary to think about when planning your project budget? Please use only words when giving an answer. We're just trying to test your knowledge or input on which do you think it's important to consider when I need to build my project budget. We have 1 minute for this question. So don't be afraid to write your answers, because here we are all together to learn and complement, if possible, with the information we have later for you. So yeah, I have planification, foreseen costs, resources, percentages imbalance, outreach, timing, employees, time frame, type of cost flat rate or not, etc. So let's then, thank you very much for those answers. So true, as many of you have mentioned, there are important aspects to consider whenever I need to plan my project budget. And let's classify them into 4 steps. The first step will be, when building your project budget, will be to consider the project work plan. You need to ask yourself the question, who will do what and for how long? This is to help you to plan per work package your budget. Then you will need to identify the resources. You should already know for this what are your needs regarding the personnel of the partners organization, the people that you will need, the equipment, the material, the land. So you can consider those needed resources to achieve the project results that you aim with your project. Then you need to estimate, the third step will be estimate realistically your cost with estimation with current and medium-term situation, and as well to come up with a backup plan in case that you may need extra money to cover any price increase. So once you have considered all these previous steps, you will need to allocate your cost per category, per cost category, per project partner, per work package, activity, and per year. So let's talk about the sound budget planning. In the application form online template, the partners need to fill in a budget breakdown section per work package and per project partner. Depending on the nature of the costs that you plan to budget, then you need to classify them under the relevant cost category. You have in total 200 characters to describe your cost. Please make sure that you have the descriptions as clear and specific as possible. We will leave you the slides and this supporting material after the session. We will try to put them as soon as possible in the website together with the recording of this session. So then you can always have a look to the examples that we put for you in order to help you when describing your cost in the application form. The cost should directly and clearly be related to the activities that you plan in your work plan. We need to see the direct connection with the work plan from the explicit, clear, and specific descriptions. There must be coherence and correspondence with the planned activities. You need to ask all the time the question, does my budget fit the activities that I plan? So use direct cross-references or clear reference to the title even of the project activities. You have examples in the slide as well. So the planned budget must be balanced, reasonable, proportionate, and relevant to the type of actions or activities to be carried out by the project partners, and they should be in line with the time plan. Any high or low budget share, they must be relevant and proportionate regarding the work plan activities. So now let's talk about the tips that we can provide you when building your project budget. Be as realistic as possible when planning your budget. Check the real cost, check the market values, avoid guessing exercise or unrealistic cost, excessive cost for staff or external experts or equipment. Wonder whether the project budget represents or respects the principles of good value for money. The project budget should reflect the project partners' involvement in the activities. You need to rely on our guidance, on the eligibility rules, on the content, on the description that we provide in the corresponding sections of our guidance. What is possible to allocate, what is possible or eligible to plan as part of your project. Follow a realistic approach. This includes as well the public procurement, and do not include costs already covered by the initiative. The initiative again covers this second programming period, the cost of the auditors, the first level controllers, and the cost of innovative actions experts. You don't need to plan costs for covering these two expenses. Be aware that the budgeting takes time, so start early enough. So now let's move to the principles of the European Urban Initiative Innovative Action Project Management with Romain.
Thank you, Nelida. So yeah, to start about this last part of the presentation, let me start with an odd question. Why is the management important for your application on EUI innovative actions? We want in this initiative to support risky projects. This means that you have your plan for the implementation of the activities, which is like this steady road. But then when your implementation will start, your plan will start facing reality, and this is when the roller coaster will start. So just this introduction to let you know that designing a good management framework for your project is not planning what will be done each day of the implementation for the next 4 years. It's also about giving the confidence that you will have the capacity to foresee the difficulties ahead, to manage risky projects, and to readapt your project and learn from experience. So what are the main principles of the management? First, it's really about defining the objectives of your project, and it is about making sure that all partners and stakeholders agree with the defined objectives and identify the results. You will need to plan these activities based on established competencies within the partnership. Secondly, it's about organizing the resources and especially being able to lead and to mobilize the people who will be involved in the project and the main stakeholders. And third, it's about controlling, about setting up the management procedures. Keep in mind that this is in order to achieve the specific goals at the agreed quality and within the specific time frame. When it comes to management in EUI, the main responsible for the management of your project will be the main urban authority. The main urban authority is the entity responsible for the overall implementation of the project. It's the main urban authority who bears the entire financial and juridical responsibility vis-à-vis the entrusted entity. And this will mainly be done through the signature of the subsidized contract during the initiation phase. Also, this is the main urban authority chairing the project partnership in order to organize the work and to build a strong collaborative relationship between the partner. And this will also be clarified during the initiation phase through the signature of the partnership agreement. And finally, keep in mind that the main urban authority has this role, a bit of an interface between the partnership with the rest of the partners and the EUI Permanent Secretariat and the entrusted entity in order to deliver the document for the reporting of the project as the tool for controls. How to plan an efficient management for your projects. Planning is really the angular stone for a solid management. So you will need to consider what are the skills of the team, to consider the tools for management that you want to use, to identify the risks the project may face, and already plan for contingency measures to be undertaken if this risk occurs. It is about reviewing and reporting on the success and the shortcomings to allow to learn from experience. And it's about ensuring constant communication at the scale of the municipality, but also with other partners, and to filtrate the information which should come back to the EUI-PS. So you will need to plan at the different stages of your project. First, during the design phase, to make it that the intervention logic fits into a work plan, which is sound and rational, and to make it into the application form for the application. You will need to plan configuring the execution of the project for the contracting, the implementation of the activities, and the monitoring of the potential change upcoming. And you will have also to consider archiving and start focusing on the audit trail. And in the end, you have to keep in mind that your project will end at some point, but you will still have responsibilities, especially regarding the administrative closure. Once you have your overall plan, how to build your work package management, and especially what it is important to consider. You are expected in this work package to describe how the management is carried out at the strategic and at the operational level, and to just also understand that in the application form, you have already a set of 5 predefined activities plus 1 optional if needed, which will be used to describe how you will ensure a sound management and coordination. It will be used to understand how to organize the work and the responsibilities for the day-to-day management. You will be tasked to describe and to provide a framework for a successful implementation. Keep in mind that it needs to be precise at the scale of the project, but also at the scale of each partner, and integrating the wider group of stakeholders. Also, you will need to produce and submit the administrative document for accounting of expenditure and the reporting of activities. To try to summarize what are the main points of this work package management, this work package should give a precise answer to the following question: who is in charge of the project? You can remember that it is possible to delegate the management of the project to another partner, provided that you have a proper justification, but remembering that whatever happens, the main urban authority still retains full control and responsibility over the management of the project. You will have to describe with which resources, whether it is time or personnel, and especially about personnel, we usually recommend to have 1 employee fully dedicated to the implementation of your project. And you will have to describe how and by whom are the decisions taken, and how is the control guaranteed at the end of the day. This question can be answered by describing the management structures. So you will have to remember to describe how these structures are appropriate and consistent with the project size and need. It can take, the goal is to support the strategic and operational management and coordination. And in this case, it can take the form of, for instance, a steering committee, a steering group involving the key partners. It can take the form of a central coordination and consultation body, for instance, integrating the main urban authority with the partners who are work package leader. It can be a technical committee reflecting especially on the innovativeness of the solution and really focusing on how to improve at each stage of the implementation the innovativeness. It can be an advisory board reflecting on legal or ethical issues that can be raised during the implementation. It can take the form of a stakeholder platform in order to involve more efficiently of all the main stakeholders during the implementation. And you will have also to remember to describe the project management team who will be involved in the project. This structure can be structured into the different procedures. So here you can find a list of examples of procedures that you could consider related to the predefined activities. included in the work package management. So these are examples. You are not asked to provide all these type of deliverables, but this is an idea of, for each type of activity predefined in the work package management, what type of deliverables you can consider. And I can go briefly about it, but for instance, setting up the project management structure can be about operational management platform or decision-making, clarifying the decision-making procedures. When it comes to the project coordination and internal communication partnership, you could include steering committee minutes or stakeholders group meetings. When it comes to the work plan management and reporting, it can be about data collection, the interim and final activity reports. And what is important about the financial management can be how we will be managing the advance payment or the transfer of payment between the main open authority and the other partners, and how you will be managing the follow-up of the audits and control and archiving. Anything also related to the procurement and legal proceedings for the public procurement procedures. And that's it for my side. I will now ask back to Nelida for the last part of the presentation.
Thank you, Roman. And so now let's move to the really awaited session of question and answer part. So let's now open this question and answer part of our event. I will read out the questions. So you will now send via WebEx chat, and I will let the speakers answer. So let's start by the first question. So we have the first question from Camille. I think it's for Camille.
Yeah, so the question is, does the maximum 10% budget ceiling for land purchase apply to buildings purchase? So now to clarify, this 10% ceiling that we have in the guidance only concerns the purchase or provision of lands. We don't have any threshold limitation for the purchase or provision of buildings. I even take the opportunity of this answer to remind you that actually, except for this purchase or provision of land, we don't have any maximum budget threshold for any other type of activity, including the investments. What we will look at when assessing your project budget is whether or not this is proportionate comparing to what you are intending to implement, and whether or not this represents good value for money.
So I just have this question in the chat. So I would really appreciate that you really are more active and do not hesitate to ask questions that are never silly questions. We are here to provide support and clarify your doubts or any uncertainties you may have regarding finances, project management that we presented today. So we have another question to get to know more information on the two options for staff cost. If you can, Jean-Christophe, recall on these two options.
So there are two options for staff costs, as you've heard today. The first one is a 20% flat rate, and the other one is a hourly rate. Maybe the first point here is that this option is to be selected by partner. So that means that within a partnership, we can have a few partners with a flat rate and the other one working on the basis of the hourly rate. I don't know if we need to add anything on this.
Is there any further information that you missed from the presentation maybe? If not, you will always have the slides as a support material and our guidances. We made sure that even in the slides you have next to the titles parentheses or in brackets the specific section of the guidance to sort of help you as well with people with photographic memory or to sort of immediately look for help in the guidance. And yeah, staff cost, I mean, you just have two options this time, either a flat rate or standard scale of unit cost, and then you will get, I mean, in a project partnership, we can have partners selecting different options, but keep in mind that the project partner that selects an option will not be able to modify it during the duration of the project. If they go for flat rate, then it will remain flat rate. If they go for standard scale of unit cost, then they will have to continue with the standard scale of unit cost.
We do believe that the main advantage of the hourly rate is that project partners will have to defend only one calculation at the level of the partner, and then the hourly rate coming out of this just needs to be multiplied by the number of hours worked by the staff on the project. Compared to the past, in terms of audit trail, we have to imagine that in the past, for each employee, a contract was necessary, pay slips were necessary, proof of payments were necessary. So this hourly rate is a drastic reduction of the audit trail.
To only 2 documents, basically the employment contract or an equivalent document, and then a report template of the number of hours worked.
So we have a new question now about the 20% contribution, whether it applies at the project level or per partner. I would say the answer is both, in a sense that the total 20% must be secured by the project partners for the project. In the system, how does it work? For each partner, you will have a target which is based on the budget of this partner. So 20% of each partner's budget must be secured as contribution. Of course, the contribution, as explained before, the contribution can come from own resources or not. So that means that, as an example, if a main urban authority wishes to provide a 20% contribution to the different partner in the project, it is possible. What needs to be done here is just in the contribution section below each partner, it must be written that the contribution comes from the main urban authority.
Mm-hmm. And this was an example and a case in the past that we had. We never prevented this. And even there is many possibilities that you can take on benefit the contribution on in-kind type. If there is a land to be declared with 10%, then the project partners, they need to already look for the rest 10% in other ways, either services, equipment, building, etc. So there is many ways that you can sort of put together a reflection on to complete this project budget at 100%. As long as it is not coming from EU source. Mm-hmm. So we have another question from Jean-Christophe, which is regarding the lump sum available for preparation. What is the audit trail needed for the expenses? And this is a good question to sort of clarify and to remind you what is required for lump sums. We have in this new programming period 4 lump sums. Mm-hmm. So, and Jean-Christophe will explain us what is it required, if there is any audit trail, compulsory for this or obligatory?
So Nelida, there is no need for any audit trail. For instance, the lump sum for preparation, the proof that we can pay it is the fact that the application form was submitted in the system before the end of the call. And so it goes on, but there is no need for any audit trail.
So the notion of thank you, Jean-Christophe. The notion for simplified cost options is really to reduce the administrative burden of keeping all the supporting documentation and justification for your cost. And this is why comes the simplicity of these 3 notions: lump sums, flat rates, and the standard scale of unit cost. And yes, as Jean-Christophe referred, lump sums equal to flat rates. They will just reduce the justification that we need behind, which are either the delivery of a specific document or a proper and real calculation of other cost categories. Basically that. So this is why it's interesting to sort of as well benefit from these notions. We want to help you as much as possible to really have the possibilities to implement an innovative project in 3.5 years. So there is another question about budget for transfer partners. For Camille, what are the budgets and co-funding shares foreseen for transfer partners?
So for the transfer partner, we will have as well an automatic lump sum for each of them. Each transfer partner will be allocated a budget of 150,000 euros total eligible cost. So that's the total budget of this partner, where the co-funding rate will be 80% as well. So basically, it's a budget of 120,000 euro ERDF per transfer partner.
Then let's move to what Camille explained as well. Another question for Camille, which is about the value of in-kind contribution that must be certified by an independent qualified expert or duly authorized official body person. Could you make an example of who this would be in case I declare an in-kind contribution as part of my project budget?
So for instance, a piece of real estate could be assessed in value by someone, by an expert in real estate, which is recognized as such. What we had also in the past, we had some urban authorities who had a legal department where staff was authorized to make such evaluation. So these are maybe the two examples. Either you go on the market to look for the expertise, otherwise you got it in-house and it's recognized as such.
So we keep waiting for more questions from your side. So we do not hesitate as well to ask about any doubts on management principles. Okay, so let's go with the next question, which is either for Camille or Jean-Christophe, as you feel like. It is about reporting works for transfer partners. Should the main urban authority report just lump sum 30% in first financial claim and 70% in second financial claim too, without details on how the amount was spent? Or are there any documents needed to justify this budget line? Okay, so there we are entering already to the reporting phase of a lump sum for transfer partners. So, and I get to guess that this person has actually gone really on deeper lecture of our guidance and even attending one of our seminars or other support sessions we provided. So thank you very much for this question. Jean-Christophe.
So I will start, yes. So the first thing is that when we use lump sum, there is no need to back it by proof of expenditure. So there's no need to provide invoices or list details about how the money was spent. What we do expect though is that the transfer partner achieve, or the transfer work package achieve some objectives in terms of deliverables or output. And if they are met, then the lump sum for the transfer partners can be free from our side. What we do plan in terms of reporting is that the financial claim to be submitted by the project, the two financial claims will be pre-filled with information with the lump sums for transfer partners.
And do not forget that there are more specific details on what type of documents should a transfer partner deliver in order to sort of receive the lump sum. There are like studies, feasibility studies, and later on, there is another, there are more, you will have more details of this in the last online session in December, which is focused about the new transfer component of the project for this new programming period, and which will also bring the capitalization, knowledge management, and communication parts for this new programming period for a project. So let's go to another question. So we have an example here. And this question will go for Jean-Christophe. We have our innovative project that aims the creation of a public-private financial co-investment mechanism for the acquisition of and rehabilitation of existing building, making the existing building a stock energy passive, low energy and zero carbon contributor. The financial co-investment mechanism must be developed in the submission of the application form, or this work can be done as part of the initiation phase. So I think here we are entering into the territory of financial schemes. Jean-Christophe.
I'm not sure it's about financial schemes. I will first answer in a broader perspective. So what we had in the past in certain partnership where we had private and public partner, they were aiming, for instance, at building a production site together. So what we have in the application form is really the description of how it's going to be set up, the cost attached to this investment. And also the application form sometimes gives information about the long-term perspective or management of this production site. So what happened, we had, in terms of private-public partnership, we had the setup of a cooperative. By the end of the project, a cooperative was set up in order to manage the investment for the very long term. And Nelida, you were thinking about the financial
schemes. No, but if you have answered the first part, that the question is that this financial co-investment mechanism, they needs to be fully reflected in the application form, or it will rather be developed in the initiation phase.
Yes.
So that was the question. So now let's have another question more about equipment related for Camille. The purchasing of a vehicle is it considered equipment or is it rather investment?
So I would say that for what concerns the purchase of a vehicle for the implementation of the project, there enters both equipment and investment. It should be the cost for this kind of cost item vehicle should be reported under the equipment cost category, but still it should be considered as an investment equipment. I don't know if you remember the distinction we presented between investment equipment and accessory equipment. Here, in that case of a vehicle, it should be clearly considered as an investment equipment, meaning the full purchase price of this equipment will be eligible, but that vehicle should be subject to the principle of ownership and durability of the project investment that we're presenting, meaning that this is an equipment that should be owned by the project partners and remain in use by the target groups for the same conditions after the end of the project.
So then we have another question, which is really more about the total funding principles, total cost funding principle. Is the 5 million euro budget the total budget of the project or only the ERDF contribution that we speak about? Jean-Christophe?
Nelida, 5 million is the maximum ERDF budget of the project. So that means that the maximum total eligible budget amounts to 6.25 billion euros. That was a hard question.
Yeah. Camille, if a municipality owns a building and the project includes activities in such building, will forfeiting rent be considered as in-kind contribution from the municipality? The rent. Let's remember that in-kind contribution, we can have donation of land, services, rent as well. So yeah, I think rent could be considered as in-kind contribution from the municipality. And if you want to rightly allocate this budget, we do recommend you to do it because this is rent, external expertise budget line. So let's go with another question. It would be nice to have questions about management. So our dear Roman here can help you as well and clarify on the principles on how the interaction and coordination goes between main urban authority, the principal there and partners. And now with the new transfer cities that we will have on board, why not?
Maybe just a point here, waiting for a question. Some questions, the point is how to best allocate budget between budget lines or work packages and so on. But if we find out that, for instance, an equipment should also be part of an investment or else, it will not lead to scoring negatively the budget of the project. It will lead more probably to corrections that we will request from approved projects.
During the initiation phase.
We're also aware that there could be a certain confusion because the one program uses different rules or slightly different rules, and but it's not penalizing the.
We are not penalizing for misallocation. However, yes, we do appreciate it from the beginning. You can sort of already have it clear for you and your project partners how you will distribute the budget. And in case you have questions, you still have time till 19 January to pop up and drop us an email and sort of clarify your uncertainties. And if not, if your project is lucky to get approved, then during initiation phase, we can always fine tune these last details. So no more questions. Hopefully, yes. Let's give you like another 5 minutes, so then you can keep asking your questions, because we still have a last bit about a presentation to remind you what are the other support services or materials that we are as well offering you, so you can have a good, solid application form. Okay, so we have another question. If we need to restore some real estate of the main urban authority for the purpose of the project, do the value of the real estate has to be less than 20% of the total amount of the budget to be considered as in-kind contribution? I suppose real estate would refer more than to buildings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Camille?
Yeah, so it's possible to valorize the value of a building to be refurbished as in-kind contribution in the framework of your project. Of course, the value of this building could be higher than the 20% of the total project budget. That doesn't mean that you cannot valorize that the value of this real estate in the project as in-kind contribution, but this will be capped at 20% of the total project budget. So you won't be able to valorize more than 20% of the total project budget as in-kind contribution.
Of this real estate. Yeah. So in the application form, you will be capped at 20%, although for justification papers that you need to provide to the auditors whenever they will check your financial claims and the declared cost, you will need to provide the actual value or made by the external person validating this.
And maybe I can add this piece of real estate, which would be higher than the 20% of contribution. When reported, is also capped in terms of value. We cannot report more than the 20% of in-kind contribution.
And again, I mean, in-kind contribution is a notion that you report 20% and we pay you this 20%. I mean, we can only pay you to the maximum of 80% ERDF. That's all we can pay you. We cannot, and this is a question that comes all the time, frequently asked, in-kind contribution is outside the 80%. No, it is not outside. In-kind contribution is part of the 80% ERDF funds that you will receive from our site. So we have another question, and this is for Roman. Should the transfer partners involve as the other partners before the project submission? Should they be involved before the project submission, or they can be involved only if the project will result to be successful or approved?
Yes, so indeed the transfer partners are a bit different than the delivery partners, because at the application stage, we do not expect you to have exactly the transfer partner involved in your project. What we will expect is at the end of the initiation phase, so 6 months after you have the result that you are selected, that you bring letter of intent from the 3 transfer cities. However, what we will value at the application stage, if you can already describe some cities you are already working with, or if you are already involved in some networks which will help you to identify these cities, if you can already provide this information in the work package transfer at the application stage, this will be very much valuable for your project.
Thank you, Roman. So now let's move with another question about associated urban authorities for Camille. We would like to confirm if the associated urban authorities participate as well as part of distributing the budget of the project.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Actually, associated urban authority, from a budgetary point of view, are really exactly as the same as any other delivery partners, which means they have a total project budget that can use to deliver the project and activity, and they need to secure as well 20% of their budget as a contribution.
Mm-hmm. Then, thank you, Camille. We have a question for Jean-Christophe, which is more about budget monitoring during the implementation phase. Does the initiative apply the same flexibility rule as the EUI-IA of 20% whenever it comes to flexibility of budget?
It's a bit higher. Nowadays, for the new programming period, it's going to be 25% or 25,000 euros. For instance, if you have a budget at 0 on a work package, on a budget line for a specific partner, the 25,000 euros is very helpful. So that means that you don't have to apply for a budget modification, but the flexibility allows the project partner to spend even if there's nothing budgeted, up to 25,000.
Mm-hmm. So now we are moving from 20% from past to 25% this time. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jean-Christophe. Another question for Jean-Christophe, which is really going to the details of standard scale of unit cost. Which year we should take into account when calculating and reporting the hourly rate based on standard scale of unit cost for staff cost? Is the actual financial year or the last closed financial year? This is a typical issue they have whenever it comes to EU programs applying the hourly rate of staff cost. Giselle, please, which of these 2 years shall we use for calculating and then later reporting the hourly rate?
Maybe my answer will be in 2 times. First of all, we will issue before the start of the implementation of the project a fact sheet on the eligibility of expenses. So secondly, the hourly rate, the simplified cost option that we put in motion to cover staff cost is totally new features for us. So we do assume that in order to calculate the hourly rate, the most recent 12 months of payroll can be used to calculate it. We also offer via the guidance the possibility to update the hourly rate according let's say the inflations, so on a yearly, once a year. But details will come in a fact sheet still to be issued.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe. And I think we will as well proceed with the next one, which is more about the time frame. Whenever we talk about the economic valorization of a building that we are working with, do we have to consider the percentage of the entire time of the contract for having this building, let's say 10 years, or only the time frame of the project duration, 3.5 years, when we do this valorization of this building, let's say rent somewhere?
Nelida, I will take over this question. To me, that sounds like a question whether it's full cost or depreciation based. In the current case, when we talk about a building, we do believe it's an output of the project. So it's the full cost of the building that can be considered and claimed to EUI.
Mm-hmm. And if you at some point plan some other activities as part of the use of this building, maybe the revenues notion may come, but this is something we can always fine tune and solve later on during the implementation phase with the project if the project is approved. Mm-hmm. And as well make sure that we have this net revenue notion formula reaches to 0 or negative revenue. So then we can always help later on this aspect. So do we give, I don't know if you still have some more questions about the topics that were presented today. Okay, so we have one more. Private project partners and ownership of investments. So if we consider to select a private project partner as part of the creation of a new public-private financing scheme. Do we need to select them prior to the start of the project, or could we select them during the implementation of the project? If we could select them during the project, could they still become owners of the project investments? So I will really rely on Camille on these questions by keeping in mind the past examples we had of co-governance models built as part of the implementation phase of some of our projects, EUI-IA projects, to sort of secure the sustainability and the ownership later on to manage the building or the pilot place after all. So please, Camille.
So in principle, any project partners must be identified and selected prior to the launch of the project and the submission of the application form. But in specific cases, indeed, it's necessary to create a new project partner in the course of the project for different reasons, included what you mentioned, Nelly, that sometimes it's good to create this partner that will be in charge of ensuring the long-term sustainability of the project or the project investment. So this is possible. This should be done in cooperation with the Secretariat during the project lifetime through a process of request for changes that should be duly justified and so on. But this is possible. And of course, this new partner, once it is in the partnership, will have the possibility to become the owner of the project investment.
And know that still the budget of the project will not change. Even by adding this new partner, you will have to redistribute if at some point this new partner will become really active still during the implementation phase that is still left. So this is another aspect to consider. Yes, we have another question. Okay, we have more other questions not really related to the topics today that we presented today. You can always send us an email to the info account, info@urban-initiative.eu. So we can always clarify all those questions and doubts that you may have. And now we will move to the last part of the presentation of the session of today. So we really thank you again for all the questions and the participation during our session. And now I will present you the last bit of our session, which is about the reinforcement of the next tools or support material. If we can have the slide, please. So we will wait for our IT support team to help us with the presentation of the right slide. So, and given the fact that we have finalized the question and answer part, we want to see if your knowledge or your understanding of the finances and management of the European Urban Initiative Innovative Actions project has improved after this sort of presentations and the series of questions. If you could please help us answering with yes or no, that would be great. Thank you very much for being that positive and reactive. Yes, the answer is yes, it has improved. And this is a big, good thing we will take with us. So now, let's talk about the support to applicants. What is coming next? So this is an indicative timeline we have for the first call of proposals. It was open, as you know, 10 of October 2022, and it will close on 19 January 2023. It will be ended by 2 p.m. Central European Time. And the eligibility check should happen between January, February 2023. The strategic assessment should come between March and April 2023. The operational assessment between May and June 2023. And the announcement of the lucky ones, the winners or the approved projects to be part of our first portfolio will be in July 2023. So the future applicant seminars, we still have 2 out of the 4 we already organized or we are organizing. We have the one of Sofia, the 29th and the 30th of November. Registration closes on the 21st of November. Please, if you still want to join and get to know more details of our guidances and practical examples, please do not hesitate to contact and register to those applicant seminars. Then we have Vilnius, the 6th and 8th of December. The registration opens on 8th November and closes 29th November. Then there is as well this, we will have for those 2 applicant seminars, the similar event structure that we have in Vienna that will start from midday of the day 1 and end the midday of the day 2. The registration is limited to one seminar per person, but priority will always be given to urban authorities because, yes, you are the target audience we want to bring on board with this new initiative. The interested participants can register to maximum 30 minutes long one-to-one sessions with the permanent secretariat as part of these applicant seminars. And do not forget to follow our EUI communication channels for more updates on these applicant seminars. Then we have as another tool of support the online collective question and answer session. In total, we have 3, out of which 2, which today we have covered. The first one was about new European Bauhaus application form intervention logic that already happened. Then today we are ending the part of finances and management aspects. The 14th December, the one that is still pending, it's about communication, capitalization, knowledge management, and this new component, which is the transfer component. And there we will, I'm pretty sure you will get to clarify which are those other outputs, documents, etc., elements that you need to provide in order to receive as well this lump sum that we were discussing today. So we will leave those details for that presentation. Then the structure of the online seminars is as today 2 hours with the permanent secretariat presentations with a focus on a specific, if possible, 1 hour length of question and answers. And all these thematic online sessions are going to be or are recorded and will be available as soon as possible in the website. So you can always go back to them, get to find the minute that you were interested on, and get to hear again the recommendations. So then we have as well the online one-to-one consultations. The consultation is online between the permanent secretariat staff members, takes 30 minutes. The preference is given to urban authorities with established or identified project in mind. The purpose of this consultation is to support applicants on how to apply for the funding, helping you with operationalization of your work plan, budget, deliverables, outputs, transfer components, and how to manage your project. Note that the feedback on the feasibility and the strategic nature of the project or the proposal such cannot be provided. The registration is was open on the 2nd of November, and it will close once all the consultations are booked. So yesterday I was checking with my colleague. We still have some slots available for the 21st, the 22nd November, the 14th and the 15th of December for online one-to-one consultations with the staff members of the Secretariat. Then we have the guidance and frequent and ask questions part in our website. So please go to our webpage, and we have prepared you a series of defined question and answers to help you as well with to sort of clarify some of the frequent asked questions that we receive. And then we have another part in the website where you can always ask your questions and receive the answers from us. Then we have as well developed for you a self-assessment tool. It is as well easy to find in our webpage. You can use this self-assessment tool in order to reflect if the main project features that you are putting together have will be of relevance of the project proposal to be that you are preparing, and you can find it there. I mean, there is always a link as well that we proposed in these slides. So this is interesting as well to sort of close our session today. All the application pack and key documents are available as well here in the slides. You can make a click there or even revise in our website. Interesting top documents are term of references that were elaborated for the call one in all the different EU languages. We have an application form courtesy document, working document. You have this even in Word template, so then you can even share it with your project partners and start writing your different work packages and activities, then put it together to then just copy paste in the online template of the system. Then you have the guidances of our initiative for innovative actions strand. Then you have as well the electronic exchange platform technical guidance on how to manage or enter or use this platform. And we have elaborated the replicated application form courtesy Word document into info bubbles in the electronic exchange platform with even more detail, or reminding you all the time with info bubbles what is it requested from you to complete a specific section of the application form. You have as well a document about the new Leipzig Charter, and then the Eurostat correspondence table to sort of check the eligibility of the urban authorities to be part of our projects. Thank you very much for your participation in our session. And we just wish you that you have a really, really nice rest of the day. Thank you very much.